Which Genovese crime family mobster was Vincent Gigante terrified of? Let's check it out. I'm James Gladwish and welcome to OC Shorts, bringing you detailed historical snapshots of the American Mafia and other organised crime. Feel free to subscribe if you like that sort of thing. Today, we are going to take a quick look at the time Vincent Gigante was terrified of another mobster. As is well documented, on the 2nd of May 1957, Frank Costello, boss of the then Luciano crime family, walked into the building of his apartment situated at 115 Central Park West, and as he approached the elevator, he was shot at by Vincent Gigante. Costello would survive the assassination attempt, with the bullet from Gigante's gun just grazing his skull. The hit was ordered by Vito Genovese, and after surviving the attempt on his life, crime boss Frank Costello would ultimately step down as the head of the family, to be replaced by Vito Genovese. But what was the opinion of other mobsters regarding Vincent Gigante after he'd shot Frank Costello but failed to kill him? In 1967, 10 years after the attempt on Frank Costello's life, an informant would tell the FBI of how Vincent Gigante was regarded by other mobsters for his part in the famous shooting. As Gigante's FBI file states, the informant stated that the attempt on the life of Frank Costello was made by Gigante, who had a perfect shot at Costello. Gigante missed, and because he missed, he became a hero. The statement from the informant that Vincent Gigante had a perfect shot at Costello but missed, and because he missed, he became a hero, is intriguing. Was Vincent Gigante deemed a hero in the eyes of some mobsters because Frank Costello was considered a popular individual, whose murder would not have gone down well? And even though Gigante missed, the attempt on his life had the desired effect, and Frank Costello stepped down. As we know, Costello lived, Genovese became boss, and perhaps in the eyes of some, this was considered a win-win. Interestingly though, not all mobsters in the Genovese crime family considered Vincent Gigante a hero. And not long after the failed attempt on Frank Costello's life, a Genovese family mobster called Charles Gagliodotto insulted Gigante in front of a room full of gangsters for his part in the Costello assassination attempt. As one FBI file reads, synopsis: informant advised Charles Gagliodotto, member of Vito Genovese's family, denounced Gigante after his unsuccessful attempt to murder Frank Costello. Details: on November 9, 1967, NYT1 advised that Chalutz, Charles Gagliodotto, is a soldier in the Vito Genovese family who is highly respected. Chalutz, according to the informant, is in his late 60s and is a throwback to the Luciano type of mafioso. In regard to Chalutz, NYT1 recalled that shortly after Gigante's unsuccessful attempt to murder Frank Costello, Gigante came into a social club and encountered Chalutz, who denounced Gigante in front of a large group of people with obscene remarks. The subject did not, according to the informant, engage in an argument with Chalutz, out of respect and fear. As can be seen from the document, not long after Vincent Gigante failed to kill Frank Costello, Genovese mobster Charles Chalutz Gagliodotto denounced Gigante in front of a room full of people with obscene remarks. The synopsis in this file seems to indicate that Gagliodotto was abusing Gigante for making a mess of the Costello hit. As mentioned, some mobsters were referring to Gigante as a hero for missing Frank Costello. And perhaps Charles Gagliodotto, who was a prolific hitman, was annoyed at the adulation that Gigante was receiving for essentially messing up the Frank Costello hit. It is interesting to read that after the respected Gagliodotto had insulted Gigante in front of a room full of people, Gigante did not engage in an argument with Gagliodotto out of respect and fear. So let's take a quick look at the greatly feared Charles Chalutz Gagliodotto. First up, let's review his name. I've chosen to use the Americanized version, but for all those interested in the traditional Italian version, my Italian friend Mary demonstrates this perfectly here.
Gagliodotto, Gagliodotto, Gagliodotto.
The way you did the dotto, so it's not doto, it's dotto.
Yes, because there's the double consonant. Again, for the Italian language, whether there is one consonant or double consonant is different pronunciation. And very often we have words that, if written with one or two consonants, have different meanings.
As the file states, Charles Chalutz Gagliodotto was a mobster who was a throwback to the Luciano type of mafiosi. This couldn't be more accurate. Some sources state that Charles Gagliodotto was a soldier in the crew of Genovese crime family captain Thomas Tommy Palmer Greco, although this is sometimes debated. Greco had been a powerful soldier in the Lower East Side crew of Charlie Luciano, when Luciano had been a captain under Giuseppe Joe the Boss Masseria in the 1920s. After Charlie Luciano became the boss of the former Masseria family in 1931, his close friend Tommy Greco allegedly became the captain of Luciano's former crew, and in this crew was potentially Charles Gagliodotto. Thomas Greco's FBI file states, "The NYO has received information from informants that Greco was a member of Charlie Lucky Luciano's original crew in the East 12th Street neighborhood of NYC, where Luciano originated. Information from Redacted that Greco is a close friend of Vito Genovese is undoubtedly accurate, and Greco is probably well acquainted with a great number of top hoodlums. The Chaluzzo mentioned by above San Francisco informant is probably identical with Charles Gagliodotto, aka Chalutz, who is known to have operated a small cafe on the corner of Houston and Mott Streets on NYC's Lower East Side. Gagliodotto had a well-deserved reputation as a feared killer, and sources state that in his younger days, Gagliodotto performed hits all over the country for the mob, with his friend David Petillo. Former Lucchese crime family acting boss turned informant Little Al Diaco would say of Gagliodotto, "But the mobster to keep the closest eye on," Al was told, was the smallest man in the group. Charles Gagliodotto was the size of a jockey, barely 5 feet tall. He had hooded eyes, hair gone grey, and an often ghostly pale pallor. He looked something like a pint-sized Boris Karloff, but no one dared kid him. They called him Chalutz, and he was a mad hatter, a stone killer. People were deathly scared of him. And so it would appear that, knowing Charles Gagliodotto's fearsome reputation, Vincent Gigante, who was around 30 years old at the time, just accepted the abuse that he was receiving. Vincent Gigante was close with family boss Vito Genovese, and according to an FBI file, Vito had utilised Gigante on several mob hits before. Gigante's FBI file states, NYT4 related, that Genovese used Gigante on a number of hits several years ago, and that this put Gigante in solid with Genovese. Another informant would also discuss Vincent Gigante's violent ways. An FBI file states, T2 said that Gigante is extremely polite on the surface, but is a ruthless, cold-blooded person. He has no compunction against killing or mutilating anyone when ordered to do so. He is ambitious but obedient and loyal to his boss, Vito Genovese. If these sources are accurate, then it appears that Vincent Gigante was a seasoned killer before he took a shot at Frank Costello. But regardless, Vincent Gigante knew to be respectful of the greatly feared and dangerous Charles Gagliodotto. Charles Gagliodotto would ultimately be the architect of his own downfall. In 1968, Gagliodotto had a dispute with his partners in a narcotics operation. Gagliodotto was in partnership with Frank Tuminaro and Frank Gangi, and believed that they owed him money. The dispute went to a sit-down, which went in favour of Frank Tuminaro and Frank Gangi. An FBI file states, Tuminaro and Gangi over a dispute concerning $17,000 profit from a narcotics operation involving the three. The dispute reportedly had been settled in favour of Tuminaro and Gangi, but Gagliodotto was infuriated about the decision. Interestingly, Frank Tuminaro was the brother of Genovese crime family mobster Angelo Tuminaro. Angelo Tuminaro is often cited as being a Lucchese family mobster, but sources actually state that in fact he was really a made man in the Genovese crime family. Charles Gagliodotto was not happy about the result of the sit-down, and so the aging but vicious mobster personally murdered Frank Tuminaro and Frank Gangi. As one FBI file states, on August 23, 1968, NYT 238 advised that he had learned that Chalutz had shot the two men in a restaurant social club on Mott Street in Lower Manhattan. He said that Chalutz reportedly invited them into the club and after having a drink, pulled a gun and committed the two murders. The informant stated that he did not know the reason for the murders and added that Chalutz reportedly had wrapped the bodies in plastic bags and dumped them in upstate New York. These evidently unsanctioned murders did not go down well with the Genovese crime family, and the brazen Charles Gagliodotto had sealed his own fate. As an FBI file reads, on August 23, 1968, NYT7 and NYT238 advised that Chalutz had been murdered on Prince Street, New York City, in retaliation, on the night of August 21-22, 1968, by persons unknown. NYT7 advised that he had been choked or suffocated by use of a plastic bag over his head to make the death look natural. One of the men who is believed to have carried out the murder of Charles Gagliodotto was his old killing partner, David Petillo. The book Mob Boss states, on the evening of August 22, Petillo met his old pal in Astoria, Queens on 21st Avenue. Chalutz, suspicious of everyone else, figured he had nothing to worry about from little Davy. Petillo had brought along a younger cousin, Eddie Vassallo, nicknamed Bullshit Eddie, for his mangling approach to the truth. Petillo managed to slip behind Chalutz and strangle him while Bullshit Eddie held him down. I heard he used a plastic bag over his head. Former Lucchese crime family acting boss turned informant Little Al Diarco would give perhaps the best summary of Charles Gagliodotto when he discussed his murder. Little Al would say of Gagliodotto, when people are deathly scared of you all the time, you're gone. Because you're too crazy, no one's safe. Let me know your thoughts on the topic covered in this video in the comments below. I hope you found it interesting. Thanks for watching.